Cullen goes live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hello. How are you? I'm sorry. I'm trying to read something incomprehensible from my friendly computer. Every time it's got me going in some kind of a loop. How you doing? I don't mean to, oh my God, what is this? My computer's been absconded with. I hope that I can get to my mail, but I'm not sure I can. I want to get to my mail. God damn it. Hi, it's Friday. Thank God. I don't know. You want me to talk? You want me to talk about this lunatic asylum we're living in? Okay. Here's a thought I had. I had this thought. That throughout human history, people have lived in societies that were unstable, in which there was great conflict. I suspect that this is generally the reality of human experience and history since the beginning. I'm trying to get my head around what the impact of the 24/7 barrage of so-called news and information that we now live with, which was never the case in human history for 99.9% of it. It's just in this little hiccup of time that we find ourselves in now. And I mean, if you look at almost every subject we talk about, the impact of that immediate sea of information becomes apparent. Sometimes for good. This is where I often forget to talk about that. Sometimes for good. When Bruce Krause was here yesterday, by the way, isn't he wonderful? When Bruce Krause was here yesterday, he talked about how he felt social media was driving the speedy change in social attitudes that is, wondrous to those of us who are unafraid of difference and is terrifying to those who want status quo, who want things to be as they've always been so they can feel comfortable. And change makes them very uncomfortable. Change makes everybody, almost everybody, a little uncomfortable because, you got to relearn, you got to learn to navigate a new territory. Some people are totally resistant to that, and others are very welcoming, and most of us fall somewhere in between. But I was thinking, yesterday I was in my car. I was going to a doctor. I'm always going to a doctor. I was going to a doctor, and this news. Something happened in Chattanooga. I thought, oh, great. Now what? And as I was in and out of my car throughout the next few hours, I learned that, yes, yet again, a shooting, military targeted. When I was listening, they were only reporting the death of the shooter. They were saying nobody else was killed. I'm assuming that was because there was a reluctance because of families to, I don't know, I'm confused but about what that was. But, okay, so I wearily, horror, yeah, I said, so whoever did this easily got a gun, willing to bet, or guns or whatever. And the media now, I thought, it'll be 24/7 on this particular act. With all of the people talking about what this means and how we're under attack and blah, blah, blah. And you know what? There's no way that living with this instant information, which is often, I would suggest, irresponsibly portrayed and deployed and disseminated, there's no way that people don't get a very skewed sense of their security. I remember years ago when Pittsburgh was undergoing a particularly difficult period of murders and shootings and drive-bys and this and that. And I remember watching the local news and thinking, oh my God, you would think I was living in a war zone. Because much of this was happening very close to where I live. I didn't feel any fear at all. And I'm thinking this news is not portraying my reality and the reality of most people. But because all news does is focus on these frightening. First of all, I'm sorry, I'm babbling. When news stations chase ambulances and police cars and fire trucks, that is a kind of news, yes. And unfortunately, that's just about the only kind of news that mainstream, the television, broadcast news and cable news covers. Only listening to the police radio, listening to that is not necessarily what you need to know. That someone's house burned down over here and that a shooting happened over there, and this constancy of that kind of reporting. I guess what was upsetting me is that yesterday our president did something that no president has ever done. he went to a federal prison to draw attention to the horror of the punitive, inhumane American system of criminal justice. He went there because he intends to try, along with a lot of other people, to pull us back from this insanity that we've been in for the last few decades of locking up everybody who makes us uncomfortable. And I was so happy that he had done that. I was looking forward to the media leading with that story, having Americans start to seriously think about it. That's why he went. This is how you get media's attention now. You do a thing. You have to have a stage. You can't just give a speech. No one cares. You have to have a photo op-y thing. So the president flew to Oklahoma City, went to this, but he wanted to open and start to open this national conversation, which is extremely important to this country. It touches on some of our most difficult social issues. It touches upon our national fears. It touches on our humanity. It touches on our economic issues. It's a huge issue. And finally, it was going to be brought out of the closet. And one gunman was able to divert the media, as we know it would. I mean, it's still diverted. Is there any information coming out about anything other than this right now? I understand there's something about they're looking for another serial killer, mass shooter up in Maine right now. I mean, this is what we do. This is not news that is as important to us as the conversation the president was trying to have yesterday. Not only were 4 people killed, 5 people actually killed yesterday in Chattanooga and others wounded, but the effort of the president to draw our attention to an important subject was killed as well because of our, I just think, infantile, lazy media. It's so easy to follow the police scanner. That kind of news is, I got to tell you as a former reporter, it is, you can write those stories in your sleep. You can write them in your sleep. You know exactly what the sidebar stories are going to be. You know exactly, okay, here's this, and now we're going to have to talk to the onlookers or the witnesses, and then we're going to speculate, and then we're going to this, and then the mayor's got to talk, and then the governor comes in, and then other people, and we're decrying this, and now we have a conversation about loan. We do this dance, this repetition. The president yesterday was trying to start a new conversation about something very, very important, and our media, with the attention span of a gnat, couldn't listen. It was, no, we had a shooting over here. Looks like terrorism. Whoo! Look, here's something else I've been thinking. We've been warned for years now that the biggest thing that Homeland Security and all these other people whose job it is to keep us safe have said their greatest fear is exactly what happened yesterday What happened yesterday looks almost exactly like what happened up in Canada. These are lone wolves, one man, almost always, one man targeting military people or government, okay? You're going to see more of it. We're going to see more of it. 99.999999999% of Americans yesterday lived normal lives. Caller, go ahead.
Hey, Lynn, it's Mike from D.C.
Hi.
So do you think that Americans are more voyeuristic than the rest of the world? Because I think that's what this is all about, is voyeurism. Even when there's a car crash, you have to have a sign, don't turn your neck, right?
I don't. That seems like human nature to me, don't you think? Our media might pander to our voyeuristic tendencies and, in fact, exploit them for their commercial gain. But I don't know that Americans by nature are more voyeuristic. We might be more manipulated by what I consider an increasingly irresponsible media.
Well, if you watch BBC, that proves your point. BBC News.
Yeah.
It's like nothing like American news.
Yeah, but you have to admit, it's more boring. It takes a serious person to listen to their news, does it not?
Because the stories aren't more than 30 seconds or 10 seconds.
Well, and they cover things that, don't scare you, that are millions of miles away, that you think, what do I have to know about what's happening in the South Sudan? Yeah, it's... By the way, there's an article in the paper today about the Conservatives in the UK going after the BBC, much like Conservatives in America have gone after PBS and NPR. So, I don't know.
For being too liberal. And
Yeah.
I'm always happy to jump on the media because I think they play a huge part in this. But also, why are we looking? It's a tragedy. I only sort of know about it. I refused to read the story last night or watch it on TV.
I didn't watch.
Yeah. To read the story now.
Okay, I did not watch any television yesterday. It was made an absolute point of not doing it because I knew exactly what it would look like, sound like. Been there, done that. Don't want to do it. But I did, feeling because I had to prepare for the show. I thought, well, I'll read what we know today. And I really, I've heard this story before, have I not? And there will be more of these things. But most, I don't know. And it is scary that there's no way to safeguard against these one person out of, hundreds of millions of people deciding to do something like this, especially in a country where anyone can get their hands on any guns they want, right? So, I don't know.
But even squirrels who look both ways are eventually going to get hit by a car if they run across the street enough. So we can only eliminate a risk of terrorism to a certain degree.
Exactly, and then we have to live with it. And that's the conversation I guess I'm trying to have, is stop over obsessing and or covering this kind of thing, because this is going to be the new normal. And the fact is that more Americans are killed every day by other Americans because everybody has guns. That's a fact. Today I think it was in the New York Times at one point, there were 2 pages in front of me, and all the stories were about young men who had murdered in a mass manner. There was the guy that, the theater killer, and then there was the Charleston killer. All those stories moved forward yesterday, and then there was this latest killer. Are we going to talk about guns?
That's why I think there's voyeurism is a powerful instinct in people. And they can't help themselves for whatever reason. I help myself. I say, no, I'm not going to engage in that.
Yeah.
It doesn't help my day. I have a friend who reads the newspaper every morning before I see her, and nearly 5 out of 4 days, she's miserable. I'm like, what's wrong? She's like, did you hear about this? Did you hear about that? I'm like, no, I don't start my day reading that.
Well, I have to. I have to. And it's true. It is not a way to, start your day with a bounce in your step. It is true. It lays on your head and your shoulders. I came in and Celine said, did you talk about, what's her name? Sandra Bland. And I said, who's that? And she said, the woman in Texas who was pulled over for a minor traffic infraction, changing lanes incorrectly or something, and ended up dead in a jail the next day. And this was in Texas. And I'd seen a little thing about it, but I couldn't, at what point I don't know. Meanwhile, our infrastructure is crumbling. All the stories and reports that we should be getting if we were serious adult citizens of a representative democracy, we're not getting anymore.
Because they're not sexy.
No, and they don't have action and blood. And death and sobbing
I'm
people.
lucky. I can turn the page and say, I'm not going to read that. And if it's important, Lynn will cover it. I'm lucky I can do that. And my friend who she actually doesn't read the newspaper, she watches the news in the morning.
Oh, no, that's...
Like Morning Joe.
Oh, no,
I think that's right.
No. I used to start my morning with that, and even I couldn't do that. Oh, dear. I don't know, but all I know is media is generally distracting us rather than informing us. And
it's easier.
Yes, it's much easier. Believe me, it's much easier. And in its distraction, it is also frightening a whole bunch of people because nothing is ever contextualized. Everything is... I'm almost where you are. I can almost not bear it, but unfortunately then I couldn't do the show. So we'll have to see if my own mental health trumps my need to do the show. I don't know. It's something. It's really something. There's going to be more of these things, and some are going to be more than 4 deaths, and some are going to, and I don't know. And how do you secure yourself? You can't, okay? We can live in a police state if we want and feel safer, I suppose, but I don't want to.
Benjamin Franklin said, those who give up freedom for security deserve neither.
I think he said deserve neither.
Neither.
I don't know what he said. But yeah, it's true. But Americans made their choice after 9/11. We decided we deserve neither. Or
and it's
neither.
All an illusion.
Yeah, it is.
You go to the airport and they make you take off your shoes.
It's an illusion. You're right.
Right. When I go to work and they have to scan my eyeball, it's all an illusion.
Pretty much. The thing is that we live in Americans, most of us live in such a sort of cosseted, I'm always screaming about the kids today, with their playgrounds made out of marshmallows and how you can't, swings are dangerous, slides have been banned, you can't play tag because somebody might fall down. I mean, it's like insanity, this need to be safeguarded, when life, the very definition of life, is risk and uncertainty and chaos and hurt and joy and all that other stuff, but that's life. And it ends in death, inevitably. Jeez. I think people, you want your government to keep you safe? Dream on. Oh, God. I'm getting nuts. Mike, thank you. Sorry? It's okay.
Sorry for adding to your nutsness.
It's okay.
Because I could have, called and said, wasn't Caitlyn Jenner's dress pretty? I mean, we could force ourselves to never have substantive conversations.
Although, speaking of Caitlyn Jenner, I do want to talk about, you didn't watch the ESPY Award.
No.
I have to tell you something. I had never watched that show. That is different than any other of these damn award shows I've ever seen. It was the most well-produced. Talk about knowing what affects humans. I cried through most of it. It was brilliantly done. And then I came upon somebody who wrote exactly the same thing, showing how brilliant I am. Somebody writing in Esquire wrote a piece called "The Only Award Show That Matters," and I'll explain that in more detail maybe later in the show. But there are, oh God, I don't know, Mike. I don't know. Caitlyn Jenner's dress was it was okay. What I can't figure out is I think she has to be padding her hips, because she wore a very tight-fitting dress and she had an hourglass figure, and there's no way. So I think in order to do that, you'd have to pad your hips. That was the only thing that confused me about the dress. I thought, wait a minute, that can't be, huh?
There's some costume designer right now smiling because he found a solution for his shoulder back. For the
shoulder pads from the 70s.
Yeah. I did it.
Yeah. That's good. Recycling foam. It's good. All right, you. Good to talk to you.
Day.
You too. Bye. I don't know, guys. I don't know. I'm going to... Celine, would you be willing to... Can we take a quick break? You come over here and try to see if you can get my computer up. So I can get my mail. I don't know if people are writing me. I'm sure they are, but I'm stuck. I can't...
Okay.
Would you? She doesn't want to.
No, I want to.
No, she doesn't want to, but we'll take a quick break. Okay.
Hi, I'm LeVar Burton, and I'm proud to be a book person. How do I choose a book? Sometimes it's the cover, sometimes it's the title. I guess I'm pretty visual. If a book's really impressing me and the writing is really good, I will peek and see what the last paragraph is, because the endings of books should rock you. I am a book person, and if you're a book person too, read to a child and spark a lifetime of ambition. Join me at bookpeopleunite.org, because reading is fundamental. A public service announcement brought to you by Reading is Fundamental, Library of Congress, and the Ad Council.
BurgBargains.com is your best bet for great deals. Log on today for great deals to the Symphony, Blue Line Grill, and BZ's Bar and Grill. Pittsburgh's best bargains, BurgBargains.com. Want something to do? Download the new and improved CP Haps app and find out what's going on in Pittsburgh. It's the free and fun app that puts the most popular events at your fingertips, plus discount tickets to your favorite concerts and shows. Text events to 77948 to download now and register to win tickets to Hosier at Stage AE. The CP Haps app, brought to you by Pittsburgh City Paper. Download now and get going.
The House presents the 11th annual Summer Night Celebration, live at the Sherwood Event Center August 7th. The Soulful Sounds of Summer show features 4 great bands: the Soulful House of Soul, the cello rock sounds of Cello Fury, salsa-inspired Baracha, and the hot party sounds of Grace Band. All proceeds help fund the Hosanna House, a multi-purpose community center serving Wilkinsburg. Get your tickets now at ticketfly.com by calling 1-877-4FLY-TICKS or stopping into the Hosanna House. The 11th annual Summer Night Celebration, August 7th at the Sherwood Event Center.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Well, as usual, when flummoxed by a computer, ask a young person. They must get so sick of us old people. Hey, what is it doing? I can't do that. So I have to tell you something. I'm gonna avoid some of this heavy stuff for a minute, if you don't mind. So I was on my way here. I was driving in my car, and there's a point on my way here that I can go straight or take a right. You know how in Pittsburgh there's a million ways to get from point A to point B, and you're never really sure if you're doing the right one, especially if your time is of the essence. And I thought, no, I think because I have to end up, I'm in the East End, and I remembered that the Vintage Grand Prix is this weekend. I've been seeing all those barricades waiting to go up. The tents are going up. And like an idiot, I made the wrong decision. Either way, I was going to end up going through what would be the Grand Prix course. And I turned right instead of going straight. If I'd gone straight, I don't know. Gone straight? I rarely do. So I turned right, which is not what I usually do either. And immediately saw, there was so many cars, all as I snaked through Shenley. Like the golf course. No, the golf course, and then made my way around. First, it was all like vintage Grand Prix stuff. Tents, people putting up bales of hay in case one of these cars went flying off the track. All this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, geez, what did I do? I'm never going to... And then I get... Usually this is a shortcut. But as I rounded the bend, right where CMU is, and as you're starting to head toward Phipps on Shenley Drive, I guess that's what it's called, the traffic became insane. And all I could see were Muslims. I thought, Muslims go to the Grand Prix? I was so mixed up. There was Grand Prix, and then all of a sudden, millions of Muslims. And I mean, and they were congregating. Is that there? No, that's not Flagstaff. The greenery in between CMU as it drops then down to Phipps, that expanse. And clearly, there was a huge, I'm assuming this is the day that ends Ramadan? Yeah? That's, what's the name? Eid al-Fitr, something like that. Okay. And as I went around, and I intended to then cut over and get on Boulevard of the Allies, and of course, it's barricaded because of the Grand Prix. I got the Grand Prix on my left, barricaded. I've got Muslims celebrating the end of Ramadan on my right. I'm going nowhere. Nowhere. Cannot believe it. Yeah, there were, I don't know if it was a service, a celebration, whatever, but wow, was that a huge crowd this morning. Interesting. Anyway, I made it in here 3 minutes before the show started. But in that regard, my son tonight is going to a feast at his best friend since middle school's house. And it is the feast that families have to mark the end of Ramadan. And I think that'll be a fascinating experience for him. I don't know. Roger's telling me to take a chill pill. Do I seem that flipped out today? Do I? I don't think. Yes, we're right. We live in a crazy, paranoid society with a ridiculous media. I'm sorry, your job requires paying attention to it all. But how about them Pirates? Well, come on, second half starts tonight. It's Friday and they're back on the tube tonight. Hopefully you can put your feet up and watch the game with your favorite beverage in hand and forget about the serious stuff for a few hours. I thank you very much, Roger, and I hope the same for you. Yeah. So anyway, but see, in America, we focus on all these negatives, and in America, what a roiling mass of humanity we are. So I've got that blowtorch thing on in my car, and instead of annoying me today, the host is gladdening my heart as I wend my way through the golf course. And he is telling his generally right-wing audience that most people in America since 9/11 who've died at the hands of a gun or in some murderous attack have been killed by white American males. Not by Muslims. Not even by a long shot. He had facts, figures, stats. He said if you want to know who the enemy is, you a white guy, look in the mirror. He didn't say that, but that's essentially what he was saying. That's the enemy, not a Muslim. If you just want to see the death toll, even those 2 pages in the paper that I said were filled with these horrors, mass killings. And by the way, the Muslim guy who killed 4 yesterday couldn't hold a candle to the other 2 stories, both of them white males, white suburban males in the U.S. who blew away unbelievable numbers of people, destroyed literally hundreds, I think, of lives, in essence. I'm not saying killed hundreds, but destroyed hundreds of lives and futures. And then here in America, so while Marty over at KD is trying to talk sense to his audience that Muslims aren't the enemy, I'm looking at what looked to be 700, 800 Muslim people, men, women, and children, celebrating and coming together. They are our neighbors. Many are Americans. Since it was CMU, I'm thinking some might be, students from another country and blah, 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 whatever. And I'm thinking, what a great country. I wouldn't live anywhere else because of the roiling differences that confront you. That you can, in some ways, I'm like a hick in that I just sort of gape sometimes at people who I hadn't seen before or who are different. I don't do it disrespectfully. I do it with, wow, look at that. It's not unlike my own father, who, when he first came to visit me in Pittsburgh, I took him over to Murray Avenue because he grew up in a Midwestern town, Green Bay, as one of the few Jews in that city. And so I thought he'd get a kick out of Murray Avenue, where businesses are aimed, many of them, at a Jewish population. I said, Dad, look, Pinsker's Judaica. And his face would And then it was a Saturday, and he saw an Orthodox Jewish family, a man all done up in that garb, and the wife with a long skirt and her head covered, and about 7,000 little ducklings behind him, walking to their prayer. And my father, who himself is a Jew, said, "Look at that!" I said, "Dad, well, you sound like a hick." I said, "Dad, it's Jews going to the synagogue." He said, "I know, but look at that." Well, that's sort of how I feel a lot in this country. Look at that. Jews walking down Murray Avenue to pray. Muslims gathering in hundreds. People who for some reason like watching old cars race around over there in tents. There's all this stuff happening. A Jewish Bolivian My son, who thought a Jewish Bolivian sharing the end of Ramadan feast with Malaysian Muslims at their home tonight. I love that about this country more than just about anything. And I really, in my better moments, feel sorry for people who don't get joy out of living in such a mass hodgepodge, potpourri, cornucopia, stew of humanity. In my lesser generous moments, I just find them stupid. And definitely part of the problem. They make trouble. So anyway, a lot going on. So the president, I don't know if you heard it because I don't think it's being covered. He said something very interesting as he entered this federal prison. He said a number of interesting things, but it's quite clear that as a black man, who at a time in his life was spending a lot of time smoking pot, and as he said in his book, snorting cocaine up his nose when he scraped enough money together to buy some. As he walked into that forbidding prison, as he looked into a cell that was 9 feet by 10 feet, a toilet, no seat on it, 3 bunks coming out, 3 people, 3 men in a 9 by 10 foot cell. And he knew that a lot of the guys in that prison were there because they smoked pot, because they snorted coke. So he made clear, he said, there but for the grace of God. And that is something we have to talk about. That there is an extraordinarily thin line between being the President of the United States and being a prisoner of the United States. He got lucky. He had support in his life. A lot of people who ended up there who might have had so much to offer us were put in prison, the key thrown away, to our detriment, and of course to theirs. When you think of the lives ruined by so-called justice, our justice system, with the mass incarceration of non-violent drug offenders, it is mind-boggling. That's a bigger story that impacts more lives, that is something that American citizens need to pay attention to and need to change, than one guy in Chattanooga going off the rails with an easy access to guns and doing what he thought would get him to heaven or whatever the hell he did. I saw Muslims in the park today. That's That is what Muslims look like. They look like us. They have families. They go to their house of worship. They go to school. They eat with their families. This family that Sam's going to be at tonight, their son, who is my son's age, is enough of a dutiful Muslim that even though he's working in Seattle, he flies back for this holiday because this is a holiday of family. I can relate to that. As a Jew, I always fly wherever I have to be with my family at Passover, another holiday, as you do at Christmas. And people who want to make cartoon figures out of human beings based on fear. Based on fear. Okay, Margie is saying the ESPYs were awesome. Yeah, I was stunned by them. I will make an effort to see them next year. Here's the reason. I know this is going to sound... Wait, before I get off on that fluff. And it's not quite fluff. Back to what the president said. And this is what got obliterated by the blanket 24/7 knee-jerk coverage of the shooting. The president said, we have a tendency sometimes to almost take for granted or think it's normal that so many of our young people have been locked up. It is not normal. It's not what happens in other countries. What is normal is teenagers doing stupid things. What is normal is young people making mistakes. We live in such a punitive culture, and I point my finger with no equivocation whatsoever at the Republican Party on this. They were always the ones selling fear, selling get tough on crime, selling 3 strikes you're out, selling throw them in jail, lock away the key, selling, the sentences that, and not just Republicans. Come to think of it, I believe we had an apology from an ex-president the other day, William Jefferson Clinton, who signed the legislation that put a lot of these people in jail. He admits that was a mistake. Fine. You know how many lives you ruined? Think of the lives you ruined. Dorothea writes, Lynn, after the killings in Charleston, the media reported on the flaws of the gun clearance process. In those reports, they stated that on average 30,000 clearance requests are received every day. Approximately 5,000 of those are rejected. So if you do the math, I suppose we are to surmise that 25,000 new guns hit the streets every day, or 9 million new guns a year. Buy your own gun because you're going to need it. Yeah, I don't know what we do about the fact that there's so many out there. And another thing that's happened since Chattanooga, since Charleston, is people have been buying up ammo left and right again and buying more guns. All it does is spy and buying every Confederate flag they can find and stuff like that. Oh, dear. Roger writes, forgot to ask. I missed your show the last couple of days. You guys talk about the Pittsburgh movie, Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl. I saw it last night. Funny, sweet, sad. Overall, a really nice movie if you saw it. Did Shenley High School seem a little too white? Come to think of it, it sure did. I saw it. I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was just a delightful movie. Delightful. Yeah, sweet, funny, sad, and honest, true, witty. A lot of wit in it. I thought it was wonderful. And speaking of movies, Celine bumped into Ewan McGregor the other day. Right here on Smithfield. She made eye contact and he smiled at her. She barely slept last night. She's not going to wash her eyeballs forever. Yeah.
Love him.
She loves him.
Watch Beginners.
I don't know. So, whatever. So, okay. So, and there's a serious story about these new labor rules. Let me just talk. I give up. I got lost in Pittsburgh yesterday. I love when I get lost in Pittsburgh. I love when I take a road that I've never taken and get totally lost. I don't know where. I was way up in the, Perry Avenue is what I finally found. And man, is that a long, winding road. That I knew would finally get me back to what I knew. But man, I was wandering around in neighborhoods that I didn't know existed. And I love the fact that I've lived here, or I guess I shouldn't. I've lived here for so long, and it's still so new to me. So much of it. And before I get into the why the ESPY Awards are so great, I want to lodge a protest about the Picklesburgh thing. There's a Picklesburgh festival today, in case you didn't know. They're closing down a bridge, the Rachel Carson Bridge, so that people can celebrate pickles. It is, to be fair, a little more than that. So they can celebrate pickles and other pickled things and canning and making your own and pickling your own, and that's what it's like about the farm to table movement too. But geez, you close down a bridge to celebrate pickling? I'm sorry, that just seems a little over the top. Not that there aren't a lot of other bridges that could get you across the river. I'm just becoming an old fuddy-dud. I can't help myself. Okay. Ray writes, there have been over 200... I'll try that again, Ray. There have been over 240 murders in Chicago so far this year, most of them African Americans. If there was a city where 200 white people were murdered in 6 months, they would call out the National Guard. And we don't even hear about it. What we hear about is the crazies going on shooting sprees. Most of the Chicago murders were a result of black market economics that have no court recourse, so people settle the disputes themselves. And they're really able to because what they have access to are guns, bullets, and, as far as they're concerned, a reason to pull the trigger. Ray says, take away one of those, the gun, the bullet, or the reason, and like a three-legged stool, it will fall. You're right. We don't, again, it's just further evidence. We do not pay attention to what's going on. And media doesn't know a story if it bit them in their proverbial you-know-what. Okay, so let me just read something about this ESPYs thing to you, because of course you didn't watch the ESPYs. And you missed a great show. There were a few things on it that I thought, oh, come on. But there was such moving human interest stuff on that show well-produced videos. The video they produced showing Bruce Jenner's life up until that point was some of the best stuff I've seen helped. If somebody's struggling, trying to come to terms with this trans stuff, this video would have helped them. It helped me. Because what the ESPYs are about is uplifting stories of hope and courage and all of that. And wow. The ESPYs focused on this woman who was on the Notre Dame basketball team who joined the Army, who ended up in Afghanistan, and who came back with 1.5 arms. The ESPY celebrated her, and she gave a speech that was out of this world. They focused on another woman. A lot of women getting a lot of attention here. Lauryn Hill. You might remember her story. She had brain cancer. She was dying, but she wanted to play collegiate basketball, and she did. And she scored. And they made a big, wondrous story about her, and her parents came out. You couldn't watch these awards, and I don't mind having my emotions and my heartstrings tugged when what they're telling me is valuable lessons. The example of people who have struggled to overcome huge obstacles, or who have lived knowing they are soon to die and who continue to live. I mean, this kind of, it was inspirational. The ESPYs, I'm telling you, were inspirational. They focused on a football player, Cincinnati Bengals player, Devon Still, and his little daughter, who is struggling to live with cancer. And he, too, was amazing. This is it was not sports as you're used to hearing. And I love the fact that when Caitlyn Jenner came up to speak, you knew that auditorium was filled with people who didn't know what the hell she was doing and still thought she was Bruce and thought she just wanted attention. And I am here to tell you that there's no way that they couldn't have been moved. Well, I know there is a way, because I listened to Marty Griffin yesterday. He wasn't moved. But here's what this guy writing in Esquire said. Most Americans still find the struggle of transgender people confusing. I have struggled with it myself. I'm getting better. And when something is difficult to understand, it is often rejected as illegitimate, as absurd, as ridiculous, as whatever, because it makes you nervous. It's not what you learned, not the way you ordered the world. There were men and there were women. What the hell is this? So, Caitlyn Jenner getting on that stage with her hair flowing and this sexy dress truly was mind-blowing. And boy, did she handle the moment well. And what she said in that speech is because she's this celebrity, because there's no way she can make this change without doing it so publicly, she intends to help people understand what this is. She's going to be a teacher. And she started that night. She says she wants to raise awareness. And the author in the Esquire article says, raising awareness is often maligned as a hollow achievement. I mean, what? Raise awareness? How about taking some action instead? But in order to have action, you need first awareness. And Jenner, at this ESPYs Award, shined a light on a community of people that has lived in the darkness for so long. And she did it in a profound and moving way. And as the Esquire guy says, now this all took place at an awards show. And Jenner's story was not the only tearjerker of the night. As I said, Danielle Green, the veteran, and the parents of the late Lauryn Hill braved the stage, and her mother gave the most amazing speech. And then the football player, the Bengal, and he said to the crowd, our family had two options. We could have lost faith and just let this battle with cancer get the best of us, or I could give my daughter's battle with cancer a purpose and use my platform to try to raise as much awareness again as I can. These are people suffering. This man is suffering. His daughter could well still die. I didn't sound like she was going to make it. She's like 5 years old. And he said, well, this guy says about the ESPYs, and I'm just telling you this so for next year, I'm serious. I don't know if they can top what they did this year, but he says what's admirable about the ESPYs is that these amazingly inspirational stories are a far more prominent part of the broadcast than the distribution of awards. It really is. It blew me away. So it was nice to see LeBron get the Best Championship Performance Award and Peyton Manning win Best Record-Breaking Performance and blah, blah, blah. But stacked up against the courageous speeches that anchor that award show, the honors get put in their place. They seem sort of silly and irrelevant. And the show itself makes them so. Puts it in a bigger context. It was very, very admirable. Everyone in the building, says the Esquire author, and watching on TV would have that reaction. Gee, these awards are stupid. Even the people getting them, you could tell. It was like, this is nothing compared to what that little kid just did. So it's what the ESPYs are all about. I didn't know that. And it's why they're the most important award show. And really, there's no other award show that's even close. That's what he says. I concur. I didn't know. I am recommending to you the ESPY Awards. And if you can find them on the internet, do it. Pretty powerful stuff. Okay, so I think that will do it for today. And a matter of fact, for this week. A la Roger, go Bucks. And have a good weekend, okay? And to my Muslim friends, I'm not sure what the proper thing is to say, but enjoy your families and your celebrations. Toodaloo.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.